G'day guys, Aaron here, welcome to my garage. This video is all about converting my DIY plywood SUP to wind power. And the first thing I need to do is remove all the deck hardware and take off the old non-skid decking. Hardware is all off, and when I removed it I was really pleased to see that there was no rot in any of the screw holes. And when I put the screw holes in, when I first installed the deck hardware, I put a dab of just silicone sealant in there, so make sure any water didn't get in, so that's great. And that's for all the deck straps on the bow and also the handle here in the midships. Also interesting to see that the lines where the rubber bungee were has prevented the sun getting into the timber, and it's kept a bit of a light shade there, so I thought that was quite interesting. Removing the non-skid was a bit of fun. The first side I tried just like manhandling it with a chisel and a knife and ripping it off, and eventually found that the best thing that worked, as you saw, was heating the top of the non-skid to warm up the 3M adhesive underneath, and going by 5 to 10 centimeters at a time, warming it up for a good 20-30 seconds, and then pulling it back and then repeating that process. And the non-skid on the starboard side here, the right side, came off in one big piece, which was amazing. And then from there, I used a paint stripper, which after a bit of testing I found was the best product to use. I also tried mineral terps. I tried a bit of sort of chemicals. But yeah, definitely the best thing that worked was the paint stripper. I think it was $10 from the hardware store, and there's still some left over, so it was just a case of applying a third of the paint stripper at a time on the deck and leaving it sit for about 5 minutes. Any longer and it actually starts taking off the epoxy. So if you ever need to strip epoxy, use paint stripper, it will definitely do the job. And there's some areas here on the board where I left it on too long, and it's actually taken a very thin layer of epoxy off from the fiberglass. But it's not a big deal. all I need to do is apply a very thin layer of epoxy over the top and sand it down, and it covers up the weave once again. So the board is now prepped, ready for surgery, and now it's time to set the gauge on the circular saw and cut off this bow section, which is going to be a little nervous, a little nerve-wracking, a little interesting at the same time. So I'm keen to see how it looks after a year and a half of use. So let's get to it. My plan for this cut is to follow it along this seam here between the two ply pieces that form the deck. So cut along the straight line first, so we'll get that done and we'll get on to the next two cuts. Judging by the depth of the saw cut, I think I've got this blade set spot on. Dry and dusty. I don't think I could have expected that to get any better. The saw cut was a perfect depth, and basically it only left the very last thin veneer of the decking ply on there. I left, the butt blocks are still here from when I glued the deck on a year and a half ago, so I'll be able to use those again. I'll put my new piece on, which is great. Yeah, and it's good to see that there's no rot. There's no structural damage. All the bonds are still as good as when I did them 18 months ago, so pretty happy with that. Alright, so that's the deck off. Really happy with how that turned out. Yeah, it's pretty nerve-wracking, and I think that's probably one of the hardest parts of actually doing this conversion was taking that off. So if you're going to do this at home, make sure you take your time, set the saw at the exact depth you're looking for, and if you're still not sure, do a test cut. You know, glue a couple of pieces up together and then cut it away. So yeah, so that's that done. And I was thinking about not cutting through my little, you know, Aaron DeRoda Surfcraft logo, but there happened to be a frame right underneath it here, so couldn't do much about that. I think I will keep it. Yeah, but it had to go. So next steps now is to identify the position of our mast and where the centerboard's going to go. It's all going to be in this forward section, and I have to remember that the mast needs to be 400 millimeters further forward from where the centerboard leading edge is. So time to mark that out.